Hello everyone, this is Taryn with Wonderfully Made Handcrafting, and today I'm working on day 10 of By the Wall for God's Equipped by Jesus kit for February 2022. If you've missed my previous videos this month, I am working through a pocket Bible this month, which is pretty fun. It has really tested me and made me think in smaller versions, and trying to use the same products in a different way has really been interesting. So in day 10, Tom is talking about the helmet of salvation, and he writes, when reviewing the helmet of salvation, it is also worth considering once again the garments of the high priest as relayed by Moses. In Exodus 39:30 through 31, we read, they made the plate of the holy crown of pure gold and wrote on it an inscription, like the engraving of a signet, holy to the Lord, and they tied to it a cord of blue to fasten it on the turban above, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Later in the devotional, Tom encourages us to read Revelation 22:1 through 5, which talks about these believers who are worshiping God with his name across their forehead. So as we look at the helmet of salvation in day 10 and 11, we know that the only salvation comes through Jesus Christ. So I take out my stamp set, put on the armor, and I stamped out this helmet. I wanted it to be metallic, but yet still a little grungy in my style. So that is why I used that metallic paint and then covered it up a little bit with some Distress Oxide. I also colored in the jewel with some NeoColor 2 and added a little bit of Glossy Accents. That will dry completely clear, but right now, while it's still wet, it does look a little bit blue. I also grabbed this dirty bronze Nuvo drop that I've been using a lot lately. I like the little look that it adds on top of that helmet, and I'll put that to the side to let it dry. So if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I really like these word flashcards, and I also love these labels for layering. And so I decided to use one of these labels and add of salvation, so it will say helmet of salvation. Originally, I thought I was going to use that whole flashcard, but I ended up cutting it down. At first, I was just going to cut it down a little bit, and then I gave it a significant cut. I'm planning on using these two papers in the background, so I want to make sure everything is antique looking. And so that is why I grabbed this frayed burlap and just kind of rub it into that flashcard. And here I go cutting this down. Now, originally I was going to just keep it like this, but then it seemed a little awkward. And so I decided to separate the two, the verse reference and the word. And so that seems to work a little bit better. I still wish I had given myself a little bit more room on this helmet piece, but it ends up working out fine. I will distress the edges with my scissors, and then I'm doing my new technique where I kind of rub it on the edge of my media mat, and I really like how that kind of folds places over. It really makes it look more old and not just distressed on the outer edges. I'll do the same with that verse reference with coloring it with some frayed burlap, cutting it down, and then distressing it with my scissors and also the edge of that media mat. I do want to add a little bit of metal to this pocket card, and so I grabbed these brads from Holtz, and I'm going to add one on each end of that helmet word. This is why I wish it was just a little bit longer, that I had left a little bit more room, but it ends up working out fine. It's good in the end. I find that piercing your holes first is going to be the easiest way to get these brads through, but then I'm also going to be adding a little bit of glue behind it, simply because these brads are really on the edge of this paper. If they weren't so much on the edge, I wouldn't feel as worried about not adding glue to the card, but since I'm not sure if eventually they'll release from the edge, that's why I decided to add just a little bit of glue in the background. So now I want to add some fabric because the more texture the better, but I wanted to look a little bit more dirty. It was looking too creamy and clean, and so I decided to grunge that up a little bit with some frayed burlap distress ink, and then I will add this to the label on the bottom. Now that the Glossy Accents is pretty much dried on my helmet, I'm going to start working on that and figuring out where I want it in my cluster. I'm working the same kind of way I do through an interleave Bible and trying to create a cluster on this pocket card, but I'm not loving the color of this helmet. It's a little too metallic for me, a little too gray, and so that is why I came over and added a little bit of frayed burlap on top of everything. Now it will still look metallic and it will still actually look gray at the end of this, but this just gives it a little bit of a different tone and helps it kind of look better with all the other elements I have going on this pocket card. So I'll set that little helmet aside to dry because I don't want to hit it with my heat tool because that will melt the glossy accents and also the embossing powder. So while that's sitting aside, I will add some paper to the background. I decide on this red burgundy plaid. I love this paper. I wish I could have this paper in like every color scheme possible. So I am adding it to here. It'll also add a little bit of bulk to this card and make it a little more sturdy. I decide to add this little helmet to my cluster by hooking it on the label, and I love how it looks this way. But I will add a little bit of glue to the back as well as the front to make sure that it is nice and secure on there. This is a pretty good bulky kind of cluster for a pocket card, and so I'm making sure that when I glue this down, I'm adding a significant amount of glue, and then I also hold it for just a little bit, making sure that every edge is actually, pressed down and firmly on the back of the pocket card. I do want to add this verse reference too, so I will add a little mini cluster on the bottom portion. I will add this brick paper to the background. I decided to use a piece of the paper that has a little bit more of the darker burgundy-ish colors, and that way, it kind of goes well with the card that I'm already working on and has a little bit more of those colors. I will distress everything like always, and so this time though, I am just using my scissors, not my new little rubbing it on the edge of my media mat technique, but it's okay because it's not the main focal point of my card, and so that is why I decided not to do that. I also have a mini clip from Tim Holtz that I wanted to add another piece of metal, and then I completely forgot to stamp my number 10 on the back side first, and I was a little worried because I didn't know if that glossy accents was completely dried yet, and so I just decided to use my little tile alphas. Once that's all stuck down, this pocket card will be done. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me over on Instagram at Wonderfully Made Handcrafting. I'll try to link everything I used down below, and if you missed day 9's process video, I'll link that one next. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.